Texas Baseball Report with your host, Rip Griffin.
Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome to this episode of the Texas Baseball Report. It is the eve of college baseball. The NCAA tournament is coming up starting tomorrow on Friday, and that's what we are going to be talking about on this episode of the Texas Baseball Report. I am your host, Rip Griffin. You can follow me on Twitter at RipGriffin3. You can follow the show on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter at Texas Baseball Report. Joining me on this NCAA baseball tournament eve is Christian Rauh from the Rauh Report. Christian, how's it going, man?
Hey man, how you doing? It's great to be back. I know last time I was on the show, we had a college baseball preview, and now we're talking where we're at for the Super Regionals and now the World Series. Man, I'm excited. This is gonna be fun to talk about.
This is great because right before the season started, we kind of did our predictions to kind of see how everything would kind of pan out. And now we've actually played the season. The season has come to an end. We got the conference championships. Have been won. That's over. Now it's time to talk some NCAA tournament baseball. The road to Omaha is officially underway, and it's going to be exciting because there's a lot of great teams, especially a lot of our Texas teams that are in the tournament that made it into the field of 64, but we have some that were snubbed, even your teams that were snubbed as well. So we're going to touch on that real quick before we break into our regionals, which are coming up. So UTSA, let's just dive right into it. UTSA had probably one of the best seasons in their school program history. UTSA is just a small school in San Antonio, but they've kind of come on, especially in Conference USA, and they were snubbed. They were snubbed. Now they had like I mentioned, one of the best records in program history. When we look at RPI, right? That's one of the things that basically the electoral committee, I don't even know what you call them, but yeah, I guess I'm being nice, right? So but UTSA overall record of 38-20. They had a strength of schedule overall at a number 64, but they got snubbed. That's just wrong. I don't know about you, but that's just wrong because you look at Christian, your team, Old Dominion, they got snubbed as well. Hardcore. So UTSA ranked 36 in the RPI. Old Dominion's ranked 40 in RPI. And when we look at the strength of the schedule, like I mentioned, UTSA is at 64. Old Dominion's at 70. These two programs were almost close in schedule, and they got snubbed. It's messed up, man. I don't know what your feelings are on it. What do you think?
Well, obviously, I'm hurt from it because this was a great season. Obviously, for Old Dominion, my alma mater, that was. I thought this was a really good year for them. I mean, they were at the top of the leaderboards for home runs for the entire country. I've talked about how I thought Carter Trice was going to be amazing. He was great, but there were some guys that stepped up like Matt Kootenai, and the pitching staff was amazing. So seeing some some super seniors really take off for Old Dominion was really cool. And it's hard for me to justify ODU being snubbed with no bias here after sweeping arguably the hottest team in the country right now, ECU. And obviously it was just an exhibition game, so it was just a 1-game series, but Old Dominion beat Virginia, who, if I'm not sure, quote me if I'm wrong, pretty sure they're the 5th team in the country. So I'm not sure why Old Dominion was snubbed. There's a couple on the East Coast over here too. I know we're going to focus on Texas that gave me a lot of question marks. I feel like they weren't. So we had a conversation during the preview a couple months ago, how we went through conference by conference. They were not to the ACC whatsoever.
No,
they didn't. They gave Notre Dame not a host site or not even really a top 16 seed, which was surprising to me. And then they didn't even let NC State join the tournament as well, which is, to me, it was crazy. I thought they deserved a shot in. So in my mind, outside of the Texas realm, because there are a few teams in Texas that got snubbed, and I'm sure we're going to talk about them here soon, ODU should have been in, and NC State should have been in as well. There should have been some spots that found them in there. What hurt ODU ultimately was their strength of schedule, but the teams they played when they were tough, they won. Like I said, ECU and Virginia.
Yeah, exactly. Looking at UTSA, I mean, early midweek matchups. I mean, they didn't get a chance to play TCU because that game was postponed. But they did face Oklahoma. They did drop that series. Louisiana Tech, which was one of those teams that we had talked about in the preview before the season started as a team to watch. They didn't. UTSA just they dropped that series as well. But they did make up that TCU. They did beat TCU, who was ranked kind of towards the latter part of the season. Charlotte was another team I remember us talking about in the preseason preview that was going to come out and look like they were going to be a team that was going to be hot. UTSA beat them. They swept them. Pretty good. And then you get into, Old Dominion. They did take that series 2-1 there. But I mean, other than that, I mean, they split a series with Texas State, who's also in the tournament. But Texas State came on pretty hot towards right off the gate, really, to be honest.
They really did, yeah. Especially after that Texas series.
Yeah, we'll kind of touch on that here in just a minute. But I mean, all in all, I mean, you look at the schedule. I mean, overall, I mean, 38-20, 19-11, the Conference USA. UTSA should have at least been giving a opportunity to actually be in the tournament. As far as maybe I think they might have been on the bubble, but at least be the first 4 in, just to, I mean, give them a shot. I mean, like I mentioned, I don't know a whole lot when you talk about RPI. I mean, there's other things that probably came into factor as well, which is, the teams they faced as far as, their RPI rankings, home and road splits, neutral splits. I know Rauh Roberts is a team that I have kind of been fixated on just to kind of do some sort of comparison, because if you look at Rauh Roberts, they're at a 102 in RPI. Hofstra is another team that's in the tournament at a 118. And there's these other teams that just did so much better, but just did not make it. I mean, it's crazy. Grand Canyon is a team that came in just out of nowhere at 40-20, and they're in the tournament, and they're ranked out of 54 RPI, which is not as good as
Right.
UTSA and Old Dominion. But I mean, come on, guys. I mean, it's just weird how they do this stuff. How they calculate it, and that's still lots to learn for me to educate myself. But I just wrapping my head around it. It's just I can't fathom how this kind of came into place. I don't know. Somebody's taking some cash on the table somewhere.
Oh, maybe. I mean, this is the year I feel, compared to ones in recent past, at least in my mind. And I know I've followed college baseball way more closely this year than others in the past, so I could be completely wrong. But it feels like some of these snubs have really been tracked more than throughout the the mainstream media, more than in years past. So this might be a year to really look at, maybe, RK, is this the way we should run this field of 64? Is there too many automatic bids? Or is there enough automatic bids? Because there should be times for some of the smaller conferences to get in a tournament. I'm all for that as well. It shouldn't just be a Power 5 tournament. Also, what about this, Rip? The basketball tournament does it. What if there was play-in games for those final? There were 68 instead of 64. Maybe ODU would have been there. Maybe UTSA would have been in those play-in games. That would have been really cool. Imagine an ODU North Carolina State play-in game. That would have been neat.
I like it. I think you need to bring a little bit more, give these teams an opportunity to get in that are on the bubble, and make it, one game play-in, boom, you're in the tournament. That's scheduling might be an issue, but you know what? Hey, this is college baseball now. This is like the premiere of college sports, in my opinion, when you look at baseball, because there's so much that goes into it. You've got teams that, and it was a little bit more interesting this year because we had teams that were canceling games because of RPI, because they didn't want to lose the RPI rating. And what are your thoughts on that? Because it kind of adds a new dynamic to college baseball when we look going into next season, because we're going to see probably a similar setup, because teams that are you can say that they're in the tournament. You can say that, you know, they're there, but they don't want to lose. That hosting a regional
Right.
is probably the most key
By
premier
far.
thing in college baseball. But what do you think about teams actually canceling games to protect their RPI?
And I agree. By far, hosting a regional is one of the biggest things that a program can do for college baseball. It brings in a decent amount of revenue, brings in fans. That's something great. We saw it with Tennessee last year, how impactful it was. I think that was one of the biggest things last season that we saw that really changed the way that people pay attention to cities. What I feel about the RPI and people canceling games, that has to change. There has to be some sort of modification, a penalty or something that hurts them. If there's a schedule that's built upon, if we go back to finances again, hey, college baseball doesn't have a lot of money or a lot of financial backing,
Yeah,
especially
exactly.
in those Power 5 schools or even in the smaller schools. There's a reason why the number 11.7 circles around college baseball all the time, because that's the only kind of scholarships they get. If you think that is the only thing that is impacting this team is just the financial scholarships, it's everything else. The stadiums aren't as nice as because of the majority of teams focus on football and basketball. It's just how it is.
Yeah.
So if you're going to cancel games because RPI is affected, well, those teams that are lower RPI are probably teams that are struggling financially, because it's going to happen to them over and over again. It's not good for the game, and it's only going to continue to grow this tier of top heavy teams over and over again. It's going to impact recruiting year after year. It just can't happen. There has to be some sort of fix that needs to happen this offseason.
Yeah, exactly. And one of the things that I just thought about is you've got teams that are there up in the upper northeast, northwest, you know, where you know the southern teams, you know, the weather, the climate is relatively warm, so these guys can get into playing these tougher schedule games, while you know these teams that are up there in the northeast and whatnot, they have to kind of wait a little bit. They have to do a lot of traveling technically, because they can't play because, you know, of the weather, snow and whatnot that happens at the early part of the season.
Certainly.
That has something to kind of affect that as well. And you know, I'm all for trying to, you know, I really, I am for, you know, more scholarships, more, um, because if you're not a D1 player, I mean, and you're not getting that type of scholarships and whatnot, I mean, and you want to try to make it to the next level, you have to kind of go a different route. And we're going to see more and more players not get into D1. They're going to go JUCO or Division II. Just so you know they can get a little bit more exposure and get those opportunities, because even following D2 and D3, you know, the College World Series, it's that which is happening right now as well. But I mean, there's a lot of great baseball that's being played, and these guys go out there and they compete, and you know they may not get the full scholarships or the, like you mentioned, the 11.7, but you know something's got to change within D1 baseball, because it's a great game, being able to go and partake and listen to the fan bases banter back and forth. But yeah, we need to fix the RPI rating, because you know we need more uh, competition, you know, especially with those teams up there in the Northeast as well. So
Yep. Agree.
but
100%.
yeah, but anyways, that's kind of our spiel on that. It's kind of frustrating that these teams didn't get in, because they obviously deserved it. They worked really hard. I mean, to get 40 wins in college baseball, especially at the D1 level, is pretty hard to do, no matter who you're playing, because the competition is always fierce and it's always, you know, great baseball no matter what. But you know, maybe we'll see something happen next season, and maybe we'll see these teams break into the field of 64. Maybe we'll have 68. You know,
Maybe.
there's always that possibility. But let's go and dive into the tournament now, because we've got 6 of these Texas teams that are in the tournament right now, 2 of which are actually hosting regionals. We're going to start in College Station first, because the Texas A&M Aggies actually started the season. I don't even think they were on our preview. I think they were the team to watch, as far as they're in the SEC West. I know Arkansas was one of our picks to actually win that division, and Texas A&M came out of nowhere, sort of around mid-season, big time win in Austin against the Texas Longhorns. That kind of catapulted them. And then they also, wins over. I don't think they had a win over Texas State, but Texas State's one of those teams that also came on. We'll kind of touch when they get into the Stanford regional here in just a little bit. But Texas A&M started the season unranked. Now they're ranked number 5, hosting a regional. How key is that? How important is that for these Aggies?
Oh, it's got to be it's very key. And, I think hosting is huge in college baseball. I feel like there is a huge competitive advantage that is very hard to explain how important it is. And I think one thing that I think we missed with Texas A&M is that we saw a team that, there was a lot of peril with their coaching last year.
Yes. Yeah.
And it changed this year. And I'm losing his name. I know it's a crazy last name of the coaching here.
Jim Schlossnagle.
There it is. Thank you so much. Appreciate it. Yeah. See, it got me. But he was with TCU, if I remember correctly, for the longest time. And now he's back with Texas A&M. In his first year, brings him to the postseason. Not only is he in the postseason, he's hosting. I feel like they got a lot of momentum. It's going to be a very, very fun regional at College Station, though.
Yeah, well, one of the things that's going to make this regional so unique is that actually TCU is in this regional,
right?
so now you've got your first year head coach at Texas A&M facing his former club and new head coach. Gosh, I forgot his name. Kirk Saarloos. There we go.
I'm really bad with college baseball coaching. I really am, and I probably should get better at it. But yeah.
It's the carousel. It's the carousel that these coaches are constantly moving back and forth, and that makes it a little bit more difficult to keep up with. But you've got, Texas A&M's head coach facing off against his old team and a new head coach. So that's going to have some drama behind it as well when these two teams probably face off. Probably on Saturday is when I think they'll play against each other, because A&M starts at 1 against Oral Roberts. So, but A&M came on strong this year. Like I mentioned, they weren't ranked to start the season, but pitching was there with Micah Dallas, who kind of solidified that rotation a little bit. But offensive too. I mean, you look at Dylan Rock, and I'm a fan favorite of Ryan Targash, who's actually from not from my hometown, but he's actually about 30 minutes away from it. And so kind of, neighboring town. So I've been kind of following him a little bit. And so Jack Moss and these other guys that had kind of just, kind of brought this offense together. And Texas A&M is sitting ranked, number 5 overall, and then hosting a regional. It's going to be a fun College Station regional with, especially TCU. And, what are your thoughts on Oral Roberts and Louisiana, the Raging Cajuns?
Well, it's, in that bracket, and it's hard to, be optimistic for that. I really like A&M there, and obviously TCU, and we shouldn't be just pushing them aside as well. I think that's obviously what it's going to come down to. I'm sure the final 2 in that will come down to, unless you never know, we could get a surprise. We have said Oral Roberts has been pretty impressive at one point. I don't know as much about the Raging Cajuns as I probably should, so they could probably surprise me. But I'm taking A&M to come out of this regional.
Yeah, I have to agree with A&M coming out. Now TCU, they did win the regular season Big 12 championship. So, but they were ousted in the Big 12 tournament after the 3rd game. So they did not make it all the way to the championship game. Mm-hmm. But TCU is a good team that's coming on, especially with pitching and whatnot. So it's going to be fun for them to see these two Texas teams battle it out here in the College Station Regional, and with a chance to go to the Super Regional. I have them. I just posted a bracket on social media on Twitter. So if you are following the show, and you can go and check out my bracket and see who I have actually winning it all. And I'm a little biased. They are out of Texas. So I'll get to that here in a second.
All right.
Spoiler alert. But no, the College Station Regional is going to be fun. If you're there, in College Station, take pictures, tag us, do something. Unfortunately, I'm gonna be unable to be there, but wish I could. But I mean, that College Station Regional is going to be fun. TCU and Texas A&M, with A&M coming out on top on that one. So let's jump a little bit further south now. Actually, probably kind of towards the west a little bit, to the Austin Regional.
Oof.
Yeah, I know. I was kind of, I don't know about you, man, but I was kind of on the fence whether or not Texas was actually going to host a regional because, you know, when we talked before the season, they were ranked number 1. They were kind of the team to beat, and the team to beat in the Big 12. And then they kind of just, some injuries kind of took place, and they kind of just, like I mentioned, they had that big loss to A&M. They lost to Texas State. They even lost to the College of Charleston at one point in time in a midweek game. So a lot of things just did not go right for the Longhorns down the stretch, but they rebounded. They got hot there at the Big 12 tournament, make their way all the way to the championship game. I mean, they lose to Oklahoma, but coming out of this Austin regional, we have Texas, who's ranked number 9, Air Force, Louisiana Tech, and Dallas Baptist, one of our other Texas teams. So coming out of this regional, how do you see it kind of playing out? Because it looks to be similar to the College Station regional, at least in my opinion.
Yeah, that's exactly how I see it remotely as well too. But I got more of an edge to Texas here. I mean, obviously they had some rough patches of the year, but they played well at the beginning, and now they're hosting again. And it's going to be probably, just warm nights or warm days in Austin, and that's a very offensive ballpark. And who's leading the country in home runs right now, my friend?
Right?
Even Melendez. He's going to have, I think, a fire regionals, and I think that the Longhorns should do very well in this one. But Dallas Baptist, we talked about it. We were hoping that they'd make it to the College World Series. Well, they're only a few games away. It could happen. They have a pretty decent path. I wouldn't say that this is the toughest path by far in any of the host cities for someone like Dallas Baptist to do it in. Texas is beatable, but
yes,
even though they lost to Oklahoma, they do have a lot of confidence right now.
Yeah, they kind of hit the the get hot button right there at the right time. And like I mentioned, Ivan Melendez, who is the nation's NCAA Player of the Year. I mean, rightfully so after what he put on a show offensively, home runs, deluxe. A good glove there at first base, but you can't count out starting pitcher left-hander Pete Hanson as well. He was very, very fantastic this season. I believe he only had just one loss the entire season, so he was definitely fun to watch. I mean, they've got some other guys. I mean, that whole lineup 1 through 9 is very stacked. Just offensively, you've got guys like Murphy Staley, Douglas Hodo, Silas Ardon behind the plate. So these guys can definitely put up runs. I mean, we saw it against Oklahoma. I don't know if you had a chance to catch that game or not, but Oklahoma was ahead like 7-1 or something in the 5th inning or something. But then all of a sudden Texas just like turned on a switch and came back, and Oklahoma basically felt they had the game won, but they ended up losing. Texas came back and I believe it won like 10-8 or something. I'll have to go back and actually pull that schedule, but I mean, that just goes to show, just in college baseball in general, that don't count yourself out yet.
Exactly.
Don't celebrate and think you've got the game won. So 12-8 was that final score there. And actually, Texas went on and took that series. That was in Arlington. That was at Globe Life Park. So, or Field. Sorry, I get those two confused, even though they're right next to each other, but they're the same name. So, but anyways, Dallas Baptist. I kind of think I've got Texas and Louisiana Tech.
Yeah, Louisiana Tech. I mean, again, we probably shouldn't, put them aside. I know we're trying to focus on the Texas teams here, but yeah, Louisiana Tech is going to be another team as well. I think that this is, Air Force. I'm sorry. I think that you're gonna. Congratulations for making the field of 64.
Absolutely. Yes.
And I don't want to say anything out of there, but I think you're going to be outmatched in this one. I really do. But Texas should do really well. Louisiana Tech, I think, has the opportunity to maybe sneak in there, but I'm going to be with you, man. I think DBU can do something. I think they really can. But one of my 8 picks is Texas, so I can't say they're not going to win this.
It's going to be interesting, especially when you look at the next bracket, which is there at East Carolina. I mean, there's no Texas teams that are in that bracket, but I mean, Virginia is in that next bracket, so there's a possibility, a Texas Virginia matchup. That would be. You're from Virginia, right? Or you're?
Yep.
That's right. Yeah,
Virginia Beach. Mm-hmm.
Man, that would be fun if both Texas and Virginia kind of hash it out there. You can. I don't know. They don't travel back and forth? I don't.
No, it stays at the host cities.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
That's what I thought. There's so much things going on. So many things going on. So
yeah.
But anyways, I mean, good Austin Regional that we've got coming up this weekend as well. So, but let's jump into the Statesboro Regional because even though Georgia Southern there is ranked number 16, it is hosting the regional, but we've got Texas Tech that is in that regional. Now, Texas Tech kind of started off, they are still ranked, to be honest. So they are, one of the top teams in the country, and they kind of were the top team. I mean, for majority of the season, they kind of fell off a little bit, kind of ranked in between 15 to 20, but then they kind of came back, and now they were in the top 10. So, but Texas Tech unfortunately did not actually make it deep into the Big 12 tournament. But Texas Tech coming out of that Statesboro Regional, which is also matched up with Notre Dame and UNC Greensboro, and that's going to be a tough bracket, I think, especially when you look at Georgia Southern, who's coming in at 40-18, and then you've got Notre Dame at 35-14. So those are two teams there that have been really tough this year to play against, and I don't know how this bracket's going to fare. What do you think? How do you think this is going to match up here?
Well, I feel like whoever has wins this one is going to have to go through Knoxville anyway. So, whoever has the 16 seed, which happened with Georgia Southern, the route's going to be difficult regardless. But Georgia Southern, out of the seeded teams, Georgia Southern, I think, has the hardest route to getting to Omaha because of the other teams that are in Statesboro and then where they have to go to next for the super regionals. But with that being said, as I said earlier in the podcast, they didn't give the ACC any love. And although they weren't the 16th seed or even, remotely seeded at all, Notre Dame, I think in my mind, should have been. And now they're in the seed. They're the same bracket with the 16th seed. So it's almost like 16 and 17 right with each other if you wanted to play that game. I think Notre Dame has a really, really good shot of sneaking out of there to head to Knoxville or to Super Regional, however you want to call it. Georgia Southern obviously has played fantastic. It's going to be that one's going to be one of the better regionals to watch.
I think so.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a really good one. I'm actually really looking forward to watching that. Notre Dame was on a lot of people's minds as under the radar picks to make some Omaha appearances, and they're not in a good spot to do it because, again, they got to go through Knoxville. And in my mind, Tennessee is the best team in college baseball. I haven't seen a team and I know you probably don't like hearing this right now, but I haven't seen a college baseball team as good as Tennessee, if ever. That team is very good. That team is very good.
They're the only team in all of college baseball with over 50 wins. 53-7 was their overall record. Insane. Now, this is kind of how I have my bracket kind of set up right now. So I do have Tennessee coming out of their regional with no problems, actually facing Georgia Southern. So if Tennessee beats Georgia Southern in the super regionals, and I've got Texas and Virginia in the super regionals, and Texas wins, I've got Tennessee and Texas matching up in possibly the first game of the College World Series. Now, when Tennessee was going through their spiel of, I don't know how many games in a row that they won. It
was a lot. That's all I know.
It was a lot. And then Texas and Tennessee met up at the Shriners Classic in Houston.
That's right.
Texas beat Tennessee to give them their first loss of the season. So if these two teams match up again, this has the possibility to be a great game one starter in the College World Series. But these two teams, because TCU is going to come out looking for blood because they had the opportunity to go undefeated at least until they got into the SEC conference play, and Texas destroyed it. And so that's going to make for a story of college baseball when the College World Series. So that's hypothetically. That's if my bracket.
Hey, hypothetically, if Texas and Tennessee are the first game of the College World Series, I would say whoever catches lightning in a bottle first might be the person who wins the entire thing. Might be the team that wins the entire thing. And both those teams have the opportunity to win lightning in a bottle. And again, Tennessee, this has so much going for him. Blake Tidwell finally getting healthy and doing his thing. Jordan Beck is absolutely outstanding. There's just a lot of things to be excited for that Tennessee team right now. And especially after them they're playing with a chip on their shoulder, playing in Knoxville this weekend. They definitely are, because of what happened last year. I just wouldn't want to be anywhere near them until I absolutely had to be.
No, it's gonna be fun. This is like you get all that hype with the NCAA basketball tournament, but now you've got baseball, because you've got all these teams like Tennessee, like Texas, Cinderella teams that could come out, because any one of these teams, especially within the lower parts of the bracket, could definitely come in and completely change the landscape and wreck everybody's bracket, just like Dallas Baptist did last year. Dallas Baptist was one of those Cinderella teams, and yeah, anything can happen now. It's what makes college baseball so fun. So just an interesting little tidbit there, just to kind of set the scene a little bit, because that could possibly pan out with the College World Series coming up between Tennessee and Texas. So, but the last team that we've got that is one of our Texas teams is Texas State, which is in the Stanford regional. They are going out west to Palo Alto, and that's going to be a tough regional, because you've got Stanford coming in, who's number 2 overall, who comes in and with a record of 40-14. Also, too, in this Stanford regional is Binghamton, Texas State, and UC Santa Barbara. UC Santa Barbara is 43-12 this season. Now, Binghamton they are the team with, looks like, an under 500 record in the
automatic bid. Yeah,
that's crazy. At 22-28, coming in with a below 500 record in the NCAA tournament. I don't think I've ever seen that before.
It's happened a few times, but it's not very likely at all. And it's because of those automatic bids. They got lucky in their conference tournament and stuck it in. A couple conference tourney winners in this one with Stanford, with Texas State, UC Santa Barbara. Both of those teams won their conferences very, very nicely, decisively, if you would. Very, very good. To me, Stanford's going to look good in this one. It's hard to not pick Stanford, especially with what happened with Brock Jones this year. Didn't really have a great start of the season, but now he's starting to show himself at the right time. And then you just add in everything. You didn't have a good Brock Jones and still found a way to be the 2nd seed, and now you got a good Brock Jones with a healthy Stanford squad. Good luck. Watch out. But that UC Santa Barbara Texas State game, when that happens, that's going to be a really interesting game, because both of those teams, like I said, won their conferences very handedly. They're going to play good against each other. So one of those teams I think are going to obviously have to battle out with Stanford to make it through that region. It'll be tough to say which one. Santa Barbara really has it going on. Texas State does it too. So I guess it all depends on. I think that one comes down to maybe the last at bat. Even could be an extra inning game. We don't know, but that's going to be one of the matchups to really watch out for. It's one that's very under the radar pick in my mind.
Yeah, absolutely. Texas State coming in not ranked as well to start the season, but they just played phenomenal baseball. Head coach Stephen Trout kind of just came in and kind of revamped this whole program. And now, coming in over 40 wins, which is the first time in program history at 45-12. They go out and they do very well there in the Sun Belt Conference. And then you come into the tournament, in a tournament where Stanford is coming in hot, but Texas State, they got hot too right when they needed to. I think at one point in time this season, they had not lost a weekend series matchup all season long. And it was, a consecutive streak of wins for Texas State, because started to be unranked, and then they come in and they're ranked, and they were ranked in the top 15. And I'm going through to see, but looking at their weekend series, they swept Baylor, they beat Baylor, UT Arlington, they beat UTSA. Yeah, I don't think they did not lose a weekend series all year. Wow, that's pretty crazy. When you look at they played Louisiana, the Raging Cajuns. I mean, they're the team that's there in the College Station Regional. Yeah, I mean, a couple midweek losses to Sam Houston and Incarnate Word. They did do a split with Texas, a home and home series. So they beat Texas and Austin. So that was a big time boost right there. They played Ohio State. Yeah, they did not lose a weekend series all season long. That's pretty crazy.
Yeah, that's impressive, and that's important moving into somewhere as big as like a host city when they start up tomorrow.
Yeah, I know they were on the bubble to actually host a regional. Not sure quite what happened. Maybe it was the loss in the conference tournament. I don't know. But yeah, they're looking to play UC Santa Barbara on Friday, tomorrow actually. So they're one of the teams.
That's a game you got to watch. Then I didn't know it was the first one. I thought it was maybe later on in the time. But yeah, UC Santa Barbara, Texas State. If you have an opportunity to watch that game, if it's on at the right time, and your team's not playing, or you have an opportunity to put it on, do so. That's a way to fall in love with college baseball even more.
Absolutely. That's game 2. Just looking at that, it's going to be the second game on Friday. So,
okay.
But they're another team, another program that canceled a midweek game due to RPI. So they kind of followed suit with Texas A&M. But I think
I don't feel as bad. Like I still need to change. Don't get me wrong. I'm still all for that needs to change. But if everyone's doing it, I don't feel as bad when smaller schools, not Power 5 schools, cancel out, because the smaller schools need to take any kind of advantage you possibly can.
Right.
Because the Power 5 schools can do it and not worry about maybe missing a paycheck of, financial woes of a game or something like that. But if a smaller school finds it to their best interest to cancel one because of RPI and be okay with that financial strain, then awesome. And at least for right now, until changes happen, I'm not too mad about it. Yeah. If that makes sense.
Yeah, no, that makes perfect sense. And, it's, schools are, whether large or small, are going to continue to do that stuff with the RPI. So
yeah,
I don't know, but the landscape of college baseball, I think it's going to change soon. It's just a matter of when. But coming out of that Stanford regional, I do have Stanford over Texas State. Unfortunately, I just think Stanford is just good, even though pitching might be a little bit of concern, especially within the bullpen. But I have them matching up in super regionals, Stanford that is, to Wake Forest as well. So,
yep, I got a couple Texas teams making Omaha, but unfortunately Texas State's not one of them. Stanford's just too good of a ball club.
Yeah, like you mentioned, Brock Jones coming in at the right time. Just, I mean, like we mentioned in when we did our preseason preview before the season started, it's all about that getting hot, right? Getting hot at the right time. And we're going to see that starting tomorrow. We're going to see what team is hot and how far they can go. And so let's do this. Just kind of round out the show real quick here. If you have a bracket set, feel free to share it. If I'm putting you on the spot, let me know. But who do you have kind of as your Omaha 8? Let's see. I think we may have did one. Maybe we did not. I don't think we did.
We did. I couldn't remember what we did. Oh, and by the way, since it's showing here, great Texas baseball T-shirt right here, as you can see. So definitely, I'll plug it for you, Rip. Check out the Texas Baseball Report swag because it's great. I can vouch for it myself. Got a fantastic shirt right. But the 8 teams to make it to Omaha.
I found it.
Oh, good, awesome. All right, well, let's hear what we got before we say them.
Okay, so so you've had Vanderbilt, Mississippi State, Arkansas, Stanford, Arizona, Texas, Texas State, and East Carolina.
Ooh, I think maybe about 3 or 4 of them might be okay still. Maybe about half of my predictions still. Wow, I said Mississippi State. I mean, hard to disagree at that point, right? When Landon Sims was healthy. But wow. Okay, so Did I say Tennessee at all?
No.
Wow. And I know I talked about on the show how Tennessee was going to be fun, but I must have said they just snuck out, I bet. Well, Tennessee is going to be in Omaha. Barring crazy stuff, I just can't see it happening with everything we've talked about already. And then we haven't even talked about the crazy Ben Joyce, who throws it faster than
dude,
a speeding bullet. So he's so fun to watch. He's gonna make Aroldis Chapman look like a sloth in a couple of years when he's finally next to the big leagues. But yeah, Tennessee and Stanford are the two that to me are no doubters in my mind right now. I like UCLA and I like Arizona, and then Texas A&M.
Ooh, yeah.
Mm-hmm. And then I wrote them down. What was the other two? I got two more. No. Let's see. What was Tennessee, Stanford, Texas A&M, Texas, UNC. There it was. North Carolina, okay. Arizona. I said UCLA, right? And then Oklahoma. I think they have the most craziest confidence right now after what they did in the Big 12 tournament. I think they are coming in with the most momentum in the entire tournament.
Yeah, that was, I remember when we were doing our preseason preview and we kind of talked about Oklahoma, even though everybody had kind of had expectations for them coming into last season because of their pitching, the bullpen and whatnot. Everybody kind of just brushed them aside, and all of a sudden Oklahoma kind of sneaks in, kind of, they just did their thing. They really did. And, here they are coming into the tournament. I'm trying to look at for the regional because they are hosting a regional.
I will say it was hard for me to pick Arizona over East Carolina because I knew I picked East Carolina. But although they are a really hot team right now, I think they're going to fade out a little bit. Arizona is just one of those teams. It's hard for you to, to throw out,
absolutely.
Away. And as much as, like I said, Texas is a really, really good team. I know you got Texas and Virginia in the Super Regional. If for some reason it's not Virginia, watch out for Miami. I think Miami can really sneak in there.
Yeah. I've got Miami coming into the Super Regional. So let's do this. Did Oklahoma? Yeah, there they are. Okay, so they're actually in the Coral Gable regional there in Florida. So Oklahoma was 37-20 this season. I actually don't have Oklahoma. I have Oklahoma and Florida squaring off in the regional, and Florida actually advancing to the Super Regional. So,
okay.
Yeah. Florida is one of those teams that I think is going to be a sleeper this year. But when we did our preseason preview, my Omaha 8 I had Texas, Stanford, Arkansas, Vanderbilt, Mississippi State. So we both had Mississippi State there. Notre Dame. We both had Arizona and Georgia Tech. And I don't think Georgia Tech made it into the tournament this year.
I don't think so either. I don't name it all.
I think.
Wow.
Yeah.
Mississippi State.
Yeah, Mississippi State. I mean, the defending.
Oh, Georgia Tech made the one. They're in. Yeah, they did.
Which one are they?
That's what. They're
in okay.
That's why it's so easy for us to pass them up, though, because they're in Knoxville. Oh yeah, Georgia Tech played great this year. They were one of the teams that was like leading the country in home runs. Once I saw Campbell's name, I was like, oh yeah, Campbell. Knoxville region's going to be fun to watch. Like I saw you're kind of an outlier there, but if you want to watch, if you're a baseball fan that likes to watch home runs, watch the Knoxville regional, because Tennessee, Campbell, and Georgia Tech were all in the top 5 in home runs.
Yeah, that's gonna be a fun one. Georgia Tech coming in at 34-22. So this is who I've got this year, since my bracket is completely changed now from when we did the preview. So I've got Tennessee and Texas.
Okay.
I've got Texas A&M and Florida, which is a rematch in the semifinal of the SEC tournament, in which Florida knocked out Texas A&M. So I think that's going to be a good one there. Stanford. Okay, Oklahoma State was a team that surprised me this year.
Yeah.
And I had kind of in the Big 12, I had Texas Tech, Texas, and TCU as the three teams to kind of watch in the Big 12, and Oklahoma State just came in just really out of nowhere, 39-20, and kind of just got up to what ranked number 3 in the country, I think is where they were at one point in time, and then a couple of losses kind of knocked them down a little bit, but yeah, they were a team. They're ranked number 7 here as a number 7 seed in the tournament. So Stanford and Oklahoma State, and then LSU and UCLA to round out my bracket College World Series. So
LSU, I like the LSU. I think that one's a good pick. You took LSU over Miami. I got you. You should take Canisius. You sure? No.
29-23. I don't know.
You know what? I like the Florida and Gonzaga pick. How you said that battle out. Gonzaga, yeah. I think they have a rotation. So obviously, you shorten your rotation when you're in, the regionals, super regionals, however you're talking about College World Series to make it that far. I think Gonzaga would have a really fun opportunity to, sandwich those guys and make it very for, obviously people in their first regional, but if they make it the super regionals. And I think they have a really good chance at making it out of the regionals. I know I'm speaking, of a Virginia team, but this is the first time Virginia Tech's hosted, and I couldn't tell you the last time. It could be the first time ever.
It's been a long time, yeah.
Right. And they get me wrong, but I could see Gonzaga coming out with it. And I think that rotation, well, if we have a conversation maybe after the World Series, I would love to do that. I bet that might be something we talk about, is the Gonzaga rotation got them to wherever. It might not be Omaha, but at least to the super regionals or something. And that might be something they talk about.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's going to be fun, just no matter what. I mean, just coming out of that regional there at Virginia Tech, Louisville. Gosh, there's just a lot of great host sites that, North Carolina, Maryland is another team that I don't even think we had pegged coming out of the Big Ten. I mean, it's just, I think we had Nebraska at one point winning the Big Ten because they did so well last season.
Yeah, just and we were so iffy about what happened with Big Ten because they, remember, only played Big Ten opponents last season. So
exactly,
we didn't know what to expect of the Big Ten this year. There's going to be a lot of really fun games tomorrow. I'm really excited for this to kick off. I'm gonna try my hardest to balance out the Women's College World Series and the men's here at the beginning. They're going to blend over to each other really hard. But I know the women's started today, and they've been really fun. Talking about the Texas baseball report here. Well, the Texas softball report for you, Rip. The Texas really did a nice upset today against UCLA, and that was really fun to watch.
A lot of good defense too on the Lady Longhorn side. So, College World Series softball's in action. We've got men's college baseball kicking up. I mean, these ladies are tough, man. It is going to be a good week, a good weekend for college baseball. So. But man, Christian, it's been fun talking college baseball with you again, and it's good. I'm glad I still had our picks from the preseason because it's crazy how things have changed now. Teams that we thought would be in, like Vanderbilt and Mississippi State, didn't make it this year. I mean, 2 teams that were playing for the title last season are not there, and that's just the dynamic of college baseball. So. But it's been fun, man, and we'll definitely touch base after the World Series and kind of see how everything how we did because we make these predictions, but we do it for fun. We'll kind of test our knowledge, But man, tell everybody where they can find you, where they can find all your podcasts as well, and what you got going on over there at Slasher Sports.
Awesome, appreciate that, and I'm definitely gonna have to get myself into filling out one of these brackets tonight before it takes off. I pulled it up while we were talking here, and it got me all excited. So I'm have to get that in there. Is it fill in, or did you have to fill that in yourself?
So I filled it in myself through the PDF. But yeah,
gotcha. I'm gonna do that. Probably right when we get off here. I'm all hyped up about the games tomorrow.
Right.
But I really appreciate you having me on again. Always a blast talking baseball with you, whether it's college baseball, professional, whatever it is, my friend. But you can find all my work at slashersports.com. We are a sports website. We do focus on baseball, and there's a little bit of horror in there as well. That's why the slasher comes in with the sports. Exactly. And then you can find my podcast, The Rauh Report, anywhere you listen to podcasts and on YouTube, always free and available. Latest episode, I cover everything within the MLB. Last episode, we were talking about the Philadelphia Phillies, what the hell's going on with them. So we'll see what happens with that one. That was a really cool conversation. You can find that on our YouTube or anywhere you find Slasher Sports. And again, thank you for having me on the show.
Yeah, I appreciate it very much. It's like you mentioned, man, it's going to be a fun weekend of college baseball. I'm excited. I'm hyped. It's been the first full season of following college baseball for the Texas Baseball Report. So we saw Texas and LSU this year, which was fun. I think LSU is a great program as well. So it's going to be a fun weekend of college baseball. College World Series just a couple weeks away. So. But that's going to do it for this episode. Remember, you can follow the show on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook at Texas Baseball Report. You can also call in if you have any baseball questions, and that number there is 210-263-3253. But that's going to do it for this episode, guys. Take care.